My kitchen utensil drawer had kind of a blowout in the back. And when I pulled it out, I could see why. You can kind of see the shadow line in the back there where there's a gap in the back of the drawer, and my utensils were starting to fall out into the cabinet below. Not a good thing. So when I pulled it out, you can see what kind of construction they used on this drawer. It's all particle board, the bottom, all the sides. The joints are simple butt joints and staples. That's what you get for $3,000 cabinets. I think I can make it a little bit higher quality than that. So we're going to improve our drawer, put some dividers in to help separate all those messy utensils that build up in the drawer, and we'll hope you enjoy our project. First, I'll measure the drawer that I need to replace. It comes to 24.5 by 22 deep on the edge, unless I go to the middle and then it's 22.25, but I don't want that bow. So 24.5 by 22. I decided to use maple for the drawer sides, solid wood instead of pressed wood. And I've planed them down all to 1/2 inch thick, jointed the edges to make sure they're good and square. And I've cut them to the 3.5 inches deep. Now I'll cut them to the length. Because I'm making it with dovetails, I'll be using the full length and width of my drawer. To start with, I'll square up the first end. And now I'll cut them to length. For putting the grooves in the sides of my drawers, I'm going to be using this adjustable Veritas grooving plane. You can set the distance from the edge of the board on this plane. Takes a variety of blades. This roll keeps them nicely separated, a couple of different shoes, different blade sizes over here for the different widths of a groove that I might want to put in, all the way up to 18 millimeters or 3/4 of an inch. It gets as fine as 3 millimeters. Here's a 4 millimeter blade. You can see it's pretty tiny, so you can go down to a pretty small groove. The way it adjusts is these knobs will tighten down the distance from the edge of the board that you want to put that groove. This knob helps to hold in place your blade along with this knob. This knob is your depth adjuster, like a normal plane would have. I have my drawer side here, and because I've marked the corners with the numbering so that it shows at the bottom inside of the drawer, I know which way to orient my board and which side to put the groove on. And this will be the depth in from the edge. I'll set my blade right on that line and move the fence in to match it, and that ensures that I'm right where I want to be. Tighten that down. For the depth of cut, the sole of this plate needs to be 1/4 of an inch up from there. I already have the blade set so that it protrudes just a tiny bit. This is saying I'm just a little bit shy of that 1/4 inch. This end is pretty close. And you can hear where it's stopping to shave things off on this end. It's because my groove starts out a little bit higher on this end. And now I'm getting nothing. So that's the end of my groove. Now that I have the grooves cut, it's time to do the dovetails. I'm going to start by doing my sides first, putting the tails on the sides, and then the pins on the front and the back. slide the plane back, cut my grooves together. It'd be better to be cutting outside of the marks than inside of the marks, because otherwise my pins will get too small. Now, if I didn't have this bar, I'd be cutting just down to this scored line here, no further. I decided to use strips of 1/2-inch plywood cut 2 inches wide for the divider sections of the drawer. So I'll cut out those 2-inch pieces. Wait! Stop! Don't use plywood when you have all this wood behind you. Okay, I convinced myself that I should really be using solid wood. So I've milled out some pieces of wood to about 3/8 of an inch thick. And now I'm going to trim them down to the width that I need, keeping the pretty grain for the part that's going to show on the top. So I want to make my dividers 2 inches tall. Basic plan for my drawer inset is to have one strip across the back as supporting everything. I'll be putting stub tenons on the ends of these 2 middle ones. The outside ones will have dovetails on the ends. This piece is going to be cut off to tenon into here. This piece will go all the way to the front. This piece gets tenoned on that end and into this cross piece. So that's the plan. And this one is going to be going straight into the back from back to front. So that has a 5/16 inch tenon, which will almost take it all the way through the back piece on the dividers. This one is a horizontal piece, so it's going to be butting into this other piece. This is about 3/8 of an inch, so I only want my tenon on this piece to be 1/4 of an inch. To do that on the Pantorouter, I'm using the 1.5 inch wide template. A 10 millimeter follower and a 1/2 inch bit will give me a 1/4 inch tenon, and that's what I want to use, and then I'll be doing the mortices with a 1/4 inch router bit. I have the centering jig set up on the Pantorouter with my 2 inches on the center line of my table, which means that as I put my 2-inch board down, it'll be exactly, my tenon will be centered exactly in the middle of this board. I've set up the height according to the thickness of the boards. I'll be setting the depth of the tenon on the side by putting the follower in the center. It'll tap up against the end of my board, and I want this one to be a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch long. I've put some vertical lines where my board will be meeting up. This is the back piece for my divider section. I've lined up the 1/4 inch bit between the 2 lines. With the bit against the board, I'll set my depth for this at the 5/16 of an inch. A hair more for extra room. I do have a backer board behind this so that if I happen to blow through the back of my board, it's not an issue. A couple of points, I did a long tenon on one side and a short tenon on the other side of the intersecting piece. I went a little bit deeper on the back side, didn't really care if it was a through tenon on the back side or if it was just partially buried. Here I didn't want the tenon showing. Okay, these parts all slide in this way. Got to put this together first and then I'll slide everything together. And by the time the drawer is glued up, I'll be able to release these clamps. And the drawer parts I've numbered on the bottom so that I can match up my corners. I don't need to glue the bottom in. It's going to fit with a little bit of room, and it is plywood. It won't have expansion problems. Okay, so as long as I have the dovetail ends sticking out, they can press through as needed. Spot on. My choice of finishing has always been shellac first, so I'm going to just finish them off with a little bit of shellac and possibly a little bit of wipe-on poly after that. I like the natural look of the maple, and let's see. Let's start in the back here. You can see how beautifully it brings out the grain. This is just some orange and garnet shellac flakes that are mixed about 1:1 in about a 1.5 pound cut. All that remains now is to transfer the slides from my original drawer and move the drawer front over onto the new box.